welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Yellowjackets Season 2. I don't think I did an episode for Season 1. I think the podcast had started kind of after Season 1 had started, but I just finished Episode 3, and this show, honestly, I just needed to talk about. So I'm sure a lot of you have already seen it, and if you already like it, you've already started Season 2. I think that Yellowjackets kind of reminds me of another television show called Mayor of Easttown, if anyone has ever watched that. And I don't think that they are similar in style of television show, but I think for me, kind of how I connect those two together is that I remember when I was watching Mayor of Easttown, after every single episode, I would always just kind of say to myself like, oh, I know who the killer is, or I know what's going to happen next, or I know this part of the story. And then the next episode, everything that I thought I knew, I didn't actually know. Like it completely switched everything on me, and I was just as lost as I had been the previous episode. And I think that Yellowjackets is exactly like that. It is extremely, I mean, not extremely, I feel like there, it could be more horrible. This definitely, I think, feels more in the genre of like mystery thriller, but every single episode it ends and I'm like, what in the shit is happening? Like, what is actually going on? And this season, the second season, Elijah Wood has joined the cast as, I think, a potential love interest for the character of Misty, played by Christina Ricci. And Misty is woo-woo bonkers, so of course Elijah Wood would be the perfect person to come in and play someone who thinks woo-woo bonkers is exciting and interesting, and of course she deserves that. Like, I don't think that Misty is like woo-woo bonkers evil. I think that she's just a little bit different, we'll say. And of course, like, her whole thing has been from the start of Season 1 really, I think, wanting that attention or acceptance from someone of the opposite sex, and that now that she's actually getting it in Elijah Wood's character of Walter, she doesn't really know what to do with herself, which seems pretty standard of a character like that. This season, we have really kind of dived into them really taking that turn into starvation mode, hitting that peak, spoilers, by the way, of them actually getting into a little bit of cannibalism. And I have to say, I'm surprised that it's taken this long. Like, I was expecting to sort of see that because they hinted at it in Season 1. I was really expecting to see some of that in Season 1, and we didn't. So I'm really like surprised in a good way that they waited this long so that it actually was a lot more believable, and you get to see kind of how far gone you have to be to get to that sort of space, and how this whole experience really not only shaped them in the moment when they were kids, but that sort of stuff, that trauma, that experience as a kid, and how that completely changed who they are as adults. Like, it shocks me that like Shauna's character is as sane as she is, or that Misty's character is as sane. Like, it shocks me to death that any of them aren't just cuckoo mad in a hospital somewhere, because I think that is exactly where I would have landed had I spent several months, starving to death in the wilderness and being forced to eat my companions. I think that Yellowjackets is such a creative television series, and in today's like Hollywood era of just rebooting everything or remaking everything or coming out with the same version of a story 10 times over, Yellowjackets really, really stands out as like a shining beacon of television that I think that most people enjoy for that reason. And I think just the story of Yellowjackets, like getting to see sort of the experience from the perspective of the teenagers, and then how they are now as adults and how their personalities either helped or didn't help them in those kinds of situations. And it's really rare, a television like this, because I think every single member of the cast that they've got, like all of the teenagers and all of the adults, are actors and actresses that I genuinely enjoy watching. Like there isn't a split. Like they really did an amazing job in this series picking younger versions of each of the adult characters and really made it so that you're not getting taken out of the moment or feeling like there is some switch between the younger kids and the adult version of them. Like they really did an amazing job here in casting and in getting some really great younger actors to come in and act out some things that I think are quite difficult. So, of course, I love quite a lot of people in this television series. Christina Ricci, of course, is a goddess and always has stood out as a great actress in a multitude of things. Juliette Lewis is one of my absolute favorites. I completely have loved her in quite a lot, and I think that her character of Natalie definitely, as a teenager and as an adult, like you can kind of see that she is very self-reliant. And I sort of, not that we're named the same, and so I'm like, we're the same, but like her character is very much similar to kind of how I am, that little bit more tomboyish, not necessarily fitting in with the crowd kind of character. I resonate with that 100%. So the fact that it's Juliette Lewis, I'm like, thank you. I will take that. I will take that character and call it my own. But this show, I think, is just amazing. And if anybody has not sat down to actually watch Yellowjackets or hasn't gotten around to the second season, highly recommend. I think it's an absolute A+ for me. I would definitely sit down and watch it. So those are my thoughts on Yellowjackets Season 2. I would love to know yours if you guys are watching this show. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family. You can find me now on YouTube. Some of my older videos are there, and I'm trying to get them up as quickly as I can so that I can catch up and start actually putting out recent podcast episodes on YouTube when they drop live everywhere else. You can also find me on Instagram at Cinematic Sarcastic Podcast, and I hope to see you in the next episode.